There is nothing for me but to love you and the way you look tonight.
There's one event in every woman's life that has to be just perfect, and of course that's their wedding day. From looking as flawless and gorgeous as Cinderella, and of course having that most delectable iced frosty cake, and the most important thing, that wedding ring. Welcome to Cosmopolitan. No, I'm not getting married, but I am here to help you would-be brides from becoming bridezillas. So join me, Taba Mutse, as I take you on a discovery of the 3 elements you need to make your wedding day a blissful one.
All the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies. Wash your hands up, like it, then you should have put a ring on it. Then you should have put a ring on it. Don't be mad once you see that he wants it. If you like it, then you should have put a ring on it.
So, the other night, Big and I were talking about, you know, moving in together and our future and, you know, what makes sense as we move forward. And, well, we decided to get married.
And I'm deaf.
I'm so excited!
Everybody is looking.
Sorry! I'm so sorry, everyone, but
We all remember this scene from our favorite New York girls of Sex and the City. The day Carrie Bradshaw announced that she was going to get married. And the wedding, as she so eloquently put it herself, soon became bigger than big. So how do you organize a wedding without losing your head? That's the exact question I'm pondering for brides-to-be out there. Weddings, like any other major life event, can bring out the best and the worst in all of us. We've all heard of the term bridezilla or even mumzillas, and you only have to watch the movie Bridal Wars to know what I'm talking about. Weddings are high octane. After all, it's an important day, symbolically and emotionally. According to psychologists, all women have, at some level, have an amount of wedding indoctrination buried deep within us. We are raised to believe in the fairy tale romance, and whether the idea is appealing or revolting, we've all been exposed over and over again to the notion of being rescued by a handsome prince riding on a white horse. And as women become psychotic brides, the prince/husband-to-be is in the background. After all, isn't the wedding all about the bride? If it is about us women, then my challenge today is to help out the modern-day bride to identify 3 tools that will help them get half ready and equipped when organizing their big day to be as perfect as possible. So before you start working on your marriage vows, let's learn a few things about the modern-day bride and what they're looking for.
And Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after.
My journey begins with the almighty search for the perfect wedding dress. After all, if it all goes wrong on the big day, you can at least handle the blow if you look your very best, right? Women spend a large part of their wedding planning in search of the princess dress. And with the average UK bride spending an average of £1,200 on their dress, this had to be the first thing I tackled. Finding your dream dress and staying on budget can seem impossible. But once you have done your homework and found the most flattering style for your figure, it all seems attainable. In the heart of London, I found a very special couture designer. Yemi Osonkoya is the award-winning designer behind the Kosiba label. Kosiba's clientele is truly worldwide, and Yemi, as a designer, is well represented in the UK, Nigeria, and the United States, as he specializes in contemporary and elegant bridal couture. My first question to him was obviously, how important is the wedding dress to the bride-to-be?
The wedding dress is the focal point. I mean, the bride is who everybody is going to be looking at. And I think it's the time where a woman should feel her most beautiful, you know, fulfillment of all the dreams she'd had, and, you know, just looking her best, really. And that's why I have a passion and a love for doing bridal wear, because I'm feeling that this is, you know, I'm contributing to that specialness, really.
What do they call them? Like the fairy godmother in like Cinderella. You just poof, and then they look so different.
Well, you could say that, especially the fact that there are certain things I do within the dress that normally I would keep between me and my client that sort of produce a bit of magic. It's almost like plastic surgery, but without surgeon.
With fabric. Talking about dresses, I mean, a modern day girl these days, we are going for different kinds of dresses, but is white still the color? I mean, are people still wearing white these days?
I'll be totally frank. From my experience, white is not as popular as it used to be. More antique white, which is an off-white or ivory. First of all, because it's more flattering to the skin compared to like ice white, which is really, really stark. And a lot of people are more fashion oriented to their wedding dress design, without being too fashion forward, but, you know, just adding a touch of personality to what they're doing. And sometimes some people actually introduce bits of color or, you know, fabric that has some different texture to it. So I would say we're going away from white.
So what would you say the modern day girl is looking for in a wedding gown?
Now, individuality. So it's almost like there are no rules. I think people at the moment are a bit fed up of strapless gowns. So people want a bit of coverage, even if it's just a strap or, you know, something off the shoulder or a jacket you can take off for various reasons, sometimes for requirements from churches or, you know, family tradition, and maybe some people have issues with their arms or for whatever reason, or just so that they can have some sort of difference between the formal part of the ceremony and the part that comes afterwards. I'm also finding that the sort of princess meringue style dress is not that popular, especially for someone coming to me. My dresses are more streamlined, more flattering. Even if you want a big skirt, I have a way of doing it whereby it's still a clean line without being, you know, really like a wedding cake.
So Yemi, of course, we live in a very cosmopolitan city with different people from different backgrounds and cultures. And of course, women with different sizes and shapes. So would you say that if you had a client who had an African heritage, that you would design differently to them to say, let's say, a bride-to-be who was born and lives in London?
That's actually one of my specialties, really. I have lots of couples that, for example, a black bride getting married to a white groom that wants to bring some element of her culture in. I do it in a way that is quite subtle. So maybe just a little bit of traditional fabric from wherever it is she comes from, introduced into the gown somehow, or maybe some sort of embroidery that is incorporated into a place where normally we would have beading, we could have embroidery. That's the direction I take. So it's very individual. I listen very carefully to what a bride tells me, and I try and interpret what her needs are and put that into the design of the dress. But it's specifically designed for the person in front of me at that time.
What's your unique selling point?
It's twofold. One, all my dresses are made from scratch, i.e. you come to me and I create a dress that is unique to you, that meets your figure type, your wedding venue, the time of year. And what's happening at the back of my mind is, what can I do to flatter and enhance the person sitting in front of me? Now, I specialize in corsetry and bone bodices. So, for example, if it's a plus-size bride, I'm able to, with the techniques I've honed the past few years, I'm able to almost nip 3 inches off the average waist. If you're very big busted, I can minimize you. If you're quite small, I can, you know, pad you up. And there are various tricks with drapery and such techniques that at the end of the day, you are in a gown and you look at the mirror and you think, oh my God, this is fantastic, this is not me. You know, that's what I try to create.
So the big question, to have a trail or no trail? Veil or no veil?
Again, that depends on the setting of your wedding. For example, if you were getting married on the beach, then, you know, that's quite casual, so perhaps not a train. Even if you're going to have a little bit of veil, it will be like a puddle veil, which is not very long. If you're getting married in a cathedral, then I would say you need something more, you know, more dramatic. If you're getting married in a modern hotel, then again, something that reflects that. If you're getting married in a country house that is about 200 years old, you know, you try and reflect that. So there are lots of things that will influence what the design is like. Even if the bride doesn't know all those things, I feel it's my job over a chat to bring all those elements out that will then create a gown that is perfect for the setting.
And I guess that's why we would choose you over the high street.
Well, that's one of the advantages.
One of the advantages. And you know what's the other advantage? Is that any girl who's at a designer's house has got to fit into one of those dresses. So I'm dying to get into one of your creations. So Yemi, shall we go? Yeah? Okay, let's go. To be honest with you all, I've had sleepless nights over wearing a wedding dress. Now that I'm in one, and I hate to say this, it's not so scary anymore. I do feel like a princess. I love Kosiba's designs because of the details and the boldness of his creations. Yemi's signature is his use of corsetry and boned bodices, cleverly recreating the classical and elegant hourglass figure, producing gowns that curve, shape and flatter the wearer, which makes his designs very bespoke. Okay, Cinderella, come back to Earth. There's more to discover in the world of weddings. Weddings can be fun. After all, it's all about bringing the people who matter to you together to celebrate your declaration of love to each other. According to a recent article by The Guardian UK, the average wedding budget is approximately £21,000, while Condé Nast Bride statistics from 2008 found that couples in London and the South East spend an average of £23,000. With the way the global economy is going, couples are also said to be looking for interesting themes for their wedding, so not to spend too much money on their wedding day. Brides, grooms and their families are encouraged to spare no expense when it comes to the wedding day. The question is the implication of perfect princesses and prince charmings and the search for the perfect day actually serving the best interests of those soon-to-be wed? Fairy tales or not, the point is wedding days are an important event in our lives, whether Hallmark tells us that or whether we believe it. What we need to make sure is that the wedding doesn't become bigger than the couple involved. The wedding cake has also become a very important part of the reception and represents much more than just a scrumptious dessert. Jennifer Cooper, who owns Jen's Cakery, makes bespoke cakes for weddings and parties. Her clients have often said that her cakes are so good that it's like melting love in your mouth. Wasn't it Mary Antoinette who said, "Let them eat cake"? Now, of course, the question of all questions is, wedding cakes have become like almost the centerpiece of the wedding day itself. I mean, when did that change? Why have they become so important?
Everyone loves eating cake, of course, but it's quite an easy way to inject a bit of personality into the wedding because they have to be made by hand. You can really reflect the bride and groom's personality in the cake.
Now, there's this myth out there that says that it's better to have a good-looking cake than actually a good tasting cake for a wedding. I don't know how much that's true. What do you think?
Well, the taste is really important. Everyone's going to eat a piece, but I think the way it looks is important too because it's going to be sitting in the wedding. Everyone's going to see it. It's going to be there for a long time, and to be honest, it's going to get photographed as much as the bride is, if not more. So it's really got to look good as well.
All right, let's talk about cakes versus tradition. For instance, like in South Africa, the traditional flavor for cakes is a fruit cake because then it lasts longer and then you can, pass it over to family members who live like God knows how far. But it seems like that's changing a little bit. You know, are fruitcakes still in, or are they out of fashion now?
It tends to be, I mean, traditionally here in the UK, cakes were all fruitcake, but people are moving away from that a lot more. You could keep the top tier for a christening, but that would have to be fruitcake. But now most brides tend to want sponge cakes, so vanilla sponge or lemon sponge or carrot cake or chocolate or anything really.
New season, 21st century bride is going, I'm getting married. What are some of the trends that are hot now in terms of cake making?
One of the most often requested cake is sort of romantic feel, a kind of shabby chic look, perhaps with some lace design or some piping on the side, and sort of subtle colours to match the rest of the wedding. But then also these a mad catter cake, which is a sort of wonky topsy-turvy one like this one. That's really popular, really sort of cutting edge at the moment. Also cupcakes, you can have a cupcake tower, and you can have the cupcakes arranged into bouquets to look like a sort of bouquet of roses, and that you can then use that as a centrepiece. That's quite a clever way of saving a bit of money if you're on a budget as well.
I have to ask you this, Jen, because we are obviously in different economic times, and obviously every bride wants to have the best day they can possibly have. But of course we have to think about budgets. What are some of the advices, including budget, that you would advise to brides who wanted to come and see you looking for the perfect cake?
If you're on a budget, I think the best thing you can do is tell the cake decorator what your budget is, because she'll come up with something that will meet that budget. That's essential, really. Otherwise you'll just get disheartened and get a lot of quotes that you can't ever hope to meet. But yes, if you tell her what you want to spend, that will help.
How much can you pay for a cake these days?
Oh gosh, well it can they can be thousands, literally thousands of pounds. Yes, I think I mean it ranges hugely, but some of the top designers, yes, you're looking at about £1,000.
Okay, so let's talk about the topper. You know, the little figures that actually stay on the cake. Do people still do that, or have times changed now? I'm
finding that most brides don't want to have the sort of the porcelain bride and groom figures that used to be really popular. A lot like me to make them almost a replica, a caricature of themselves on the top out of icing. But I've had a lot of stranger ones, a sailing boat. I've also had one with a camper van, and it had the couple leaning out the windows waving. So that was quite nice. Things that are just, that no one else is going to have, things that are one-offs, that's much more popular nowadays.
Perfect. Now, if you thought that wedding cakes was just another cake, well, you couldn't have been more wrong. And if Jen's cakes taste as good as this cupcake, well, your guests are in for a treat. Bon appetit.
Thank you.
Bring on the day. Go ahead, 'cause you can't sleep anyway. Bring on the day. Don't have to wait for tomorrow.
Now, once a couple has decided that they're going to get married, of course, they need the all-important bling, the engagement ring, and it's probably going to be one of their most important purchases. But what if they've never bought a diamond before and they don't even know what a carat is? Well, this is where they need to come to, one of London's premium jewellery lane. This is, of course, where we're going to get all the advice we need on what the 4 C's are, how to actually choose a diamond, and of course, for that all-important day. Every single element of the wedding can support and communicate the things that are important to the couple and their hopes for their future. The ring, which others regard as the symbol of eternity, the circle of life, is supposed to be one way the couple can show their undying love to one another. And it's one of the items that couples do splash on. So how much does an ever-after piece of jewelry cost? Wedding bands can cost anything from £100 to £1,000. If you're looking for some of the best jewelers in London, look no further. Classic Jewels was established 40 years ago. You'll love their huge selections of 18-karat jewelry, sapphire, emerald, eternity rings. The list is endless. traditionally, you always see during engagement time where, you have the engagement ring and then during the wedding you have another ring. I mean, there's a lot of rings being bought here. Is there a myth behind all of this? Is there a story that we don't know that we should know about?
The wedding ring is there to symbolise the fact that it's obviously an unbroken strip of metal. It's probably there to symbolise the fact that the love aspect of the relationship or the marriage is to last there forever and not be broken by anyone. Engagement ring is more, I think, the setting the tone for what's about to happen. In terms of, it's not unusual, for instance, although it doesn't happen that often, that someone might just go for a wedding band as opposed to the engagement ring. But as I say, most ladies would not have that. So.
Obvious question. Every girl loves their diamonds. Why have they become such a popular gem, considering that there's so many other gems out there?
I think it's partly to do with tradition. And of course, perhaps cost as well. Obviously, they would retail more than similar sort of or semi-precious gemstones, as opposed to sort of ruby or emerald. And I suppose the term still exists, girl's best friend, really. Okay,
let's talk about the 4 C's of diamond buying. What are they?
The 4 C's would relate to carat, which is obviously carat weight or weight of the stone. Example, this stone we have in front of us is 50 points, or half a carat. You would then look for colour, which is the natural colour of the stone itself, which would range from icy white, which would be the more desirable, down to a stone which is drawing colour or drawing yellow. Then you would have clarity of the stone, which is the natural, or the actual amount of inclusions that stone would have. Obviously, ideally, a stone should have as few or no inclusions as possible. And then you would come down to cut, which is how the stone has been cut best for proportions to allow light to refract through to create that brilliance, which at the end of the day, which is everyone's looking for.
So what are some of the latest trends for like the modern day bride? What are people going for these days?
A white metal has been popular, or more popular than, say, for traditionally yellow gold. More people are now going for platinum. Benefits of platinum, of course, is the fact that it is a much harder wearing metal. And the fact it is very, very rare as well, which obviously increases the fact that its markability. Design-wise, designs come and go with jewellery just the same as anything else. I mean, you could something like this, for instance, which is sort of fairly sort of traditional folklore setting, down to something like this, which is also a lot more modern, in a rub-over setting, so it's nice and flush with diamonds surrounding.
Now, Kevin, before we start, putting on some of those rings on to see which one fits, how about you give us 5 tips that you think that everyone should know before they get to a jewellery store?
Try and stick to stores which are, as I say, reputable. Know a few questions to go on with first. So, for instance, ask what the colour and clarity of the stone is. Obviously, which is obviously in the news recently with Naomi Campbell. People are tending to ask now more about the origin of the stone itself. Any good reputable jeweller should be able to provide this information to you. And apart from that, it's an engagement. This day you're getting engaged, try and enjoy it. Don't try and move too much into the science of it. Obviously, yes, as a consumer, you want to be protected, but try and enjoy it as much as you can.
I think those are very good tips. Now, as the old saying goes, something old, something borrowed, and something new, definitely diamonds. Kevin, let's test them out. Let's see which one will fit these fingers of mine. Diamonds, diamonds, diamonds.
This is a 40-point centre. Okay. It's called a princess cut, which is basically it's a square modified stone.
It's true what they say. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. What most women want is a great piece of jewelry that will make them feel special. Every girl knows what kind of ring they want. They may not tell you, but they know. And if I have to be honest with you, my Cosmo girls, I'm not really much of a girl, but platinum with a bit of diamond, any day.
Everybody, let's get into it. Get stoked, get it started, get it started, get it started. Let's get it started.
Today, I played out my childhood fantasy of being Cinderella for a day. Thanks to Ring Designer Wedding Dresses for providing us with some of their most fresh, luxurious, modern and traditional styles of wedding dresses. But I do understand that organizing a wedding is no child's play, that it takes organizing and planning, and there's a lot of people behind making the wedding day the most perfect for the groom and the bride. What I've learned in my journey in the world of weddings is that weddings are a great way of celebrating a union of two souls. I would hope for the modern day girl that searching for the glitz and perfection shouldn't be the all or nothing, but rather they should be searching for something that is meaningful and, yes, beautiful. After all, this has to be something that will last forever and ever in their memory, because you really only want to do this once.
All the single ladies, 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 all the single ladies. Put your hands up, up in the club. I just broke up, doing my own little thing. Decided to do